Hey guys, it's Leviatross, and welcome to Real Talk, the series where I talk about the movies that I saw in theaters this weekend and just go over my thoughts about it and kind of give you an idea of whether you would like to see it. And before I get into it, this is going to be spoiler free. I won't be talking about anything late into the movie of the films that I saw. So, starting off, I went to the theater this weekend to see Kraven the Hunter and Queer. And to preface, like I see a lot of movies, and that's part of why I'm doing this series. When I see a movie, that's not an endorsement that's going to be good. There's movies that go, that looks really bad. Let's see how bad it is. And that's the situation with Kraven the Hunter. Because Morbius and Madam Web were both terrible. And also Venom The Last Dance was also not very good. But I still am like a bit of a masochist when it comes to bad movies for whatever reason. So I decided I would go to the theater to see it. But this was the most confounding movie theater experience because I got to the movie like 15, 20 minutes after the start time, like the listed show time, so that I can skip, not have to sit through all of the trailers. But I get in the theater and it's in IMAX, and I can see when I bought my ticket that I was the only person in the theater. And I get there and it's like the movie should be starting soon, but the projector's not even on. And so I was like, all right, that's weird. I guess, it's the first showing of the day. I don't know if they didn't notice that anyone was there to see Craven the Hunter. So I let the employee know and they go to check it. And then the guy comes out and he's like, yeah, I checked everything, make sure that's ready to go. And the movie's going to start at 11:15. And then the trailers, they'll start in like 5 or 10 minutes. And I was like, this is really throwing me off because it was supposed to start at like 10:30. And so it's like 45 minutes later. And that's going to overlap with Queer. And I was like, I guess I'll just leave Craven the Hunter a little bit early and then you know deal with that and then get to see all of Queer rather than missing part of that to see the end of Craven the Hunter. But either way, I was like, I guess that's fine. I'm sitting there and the projector turns on and it's playing the trailers and like movie trivia. That's like what actor is added to the cast of Sonic the Hedgehog 3. And I go, Keanu Reeves, but no one's there to applaud me. And so I'm just sitting there. It's like Nuvi, like with Maria Menounos, and then it's talking about like wicked behind the scenes interviews. I was like, I really don't need to spend my time watching this. So I went back to the employee at the front. I was like, hey, is it possible to skip the trailers? And they're like, oh no, we have to show all of the trailers every time. I was like, all right, I guess I'll just like sit through it then. So I sit there for like 45 minutes watching all the trailers and stuff like that. And then finally the movie starts and it does like the opening like company credits and stuff like that. And then it says Interstellar. And it starts playing the movie Interstellar. I was like, how is it so messed up that like everything's going wrong? And other like people did start to trickle in as it got closer to the like movie starting. But I was just like, this is really weird. Like, how did they mess up and accidentally play the wrong movie? But no one else in the theater is like really reacting to it. But I went, I like checked my phone because I'm like, no, like this should be Craven the Hunter. I look and it says like Craven the Hunter in IMAX at 10:30. And then I look and Interstellar says 11:15. I go, that's weird. I'm like, did Craven the Hunter sell so badly that they just changed it to a showing of Interstellar, but they didn't like notify me that I was the only person with the ticket? So I go to the front to ask about this again, and I walk up. I'm like, hey, there's something like it's playing Interstellar, but then it said Crave the Hunter in IMAX at 10:30. I go up to, I go, it says 10:30 p.m. And so I showed up to the movie 12 hours early. I felt very foolish and a bit embarrassed, but at least it made sense why everything was so weird now. And so I was like a bit stuck because I was like, okay, I waited 45 minutes to start watching Craven the Hunter and it's Interstellar. I looked at what other movies were showing, but I was like, I was planning to just see Queer at 12:45, so I was like, okay, I guess I'll just watch Interstellar for an hour and then go over to watch Queer. And so that's what I did. And I was sitting in the theater in IMAX watching Interstellar. I was like, Interstellar is really good. Almost as good as Craven the Hunter probably would be. But I did enjoy the movie. I was like, man, this is really good. Like I've seen it before, but I kind of just forgot about how good and like how tight and cohesive of a movie it is. And so even though I had to wait a long time and didn't get to see Craven the Hunter, that I have to like go back to the theater again to see it sometime, it wasn't too bad just sitting there watching the first hour of Interstellar again. But moving on, I went to see the movie Queer, and I went to the movie pretty blind. The only thing I knew about was that it had Daniel Craig in it. It was an A24 film and the title of the movie, and that was it. I hadn't seen any trailers and didn't really look into it at all. And so I decided to just give the movie a shot and see how it is. And to just kind of give my overall thoughts, I think the movie's fine. Like it's not there's nothing about it that's like, oh, this is really bad or like this is like incompetent filmmaking. The movie's fine. Like it's decent and like there's some like there's moments that I like about the movie, but it's not anything that's really like you got to go out and go see it. Like there's nothing bad about it, but there's not anything that makes it really worth seeing, especially compared to other movies. But talking about some of the positives, I really like the cinematography of the film. Like, there's a lot of shots of just them, like the city. It takes place in 1950, and like I don't know what country exactly, but in like a foreign country, and just kind of like the cinematography and the vibe of that place and that time period. It just felt like kind of nice to see. Kind of similar to like Call Me by Your Name, where it's like just the shots of the city in Italy. It just feels like very nice. And so it wasn't on the same level as Call Me by Your Name, but it was nice to just kind of like experience. The story really doesn't give a lot to really like latch onto. It just kind of felt like stuff happens and the characters you don't really feel attached to. Like Daniel Craig's character, the main character, he doesn't really feel like a good person and not really likable. And there's also not a lot of eventful stuff happening to like kind of keep you engaged. It just kind of feels like he goes around and does stuff and then that's most of the movie. Uh Other positives, there are some shots that I was like, this is really good, or like the directing style of it. There's a few scenes where he's hanging out with this guy and he doesn't know if the guy that he's hanging out with is gay or not. And so as he's like going out, hanging out with him, it will show like kind of what he wants to express. And so it'll be Daniel Craig, but him at like half opacity, like overlaid. So he's sitting next to the guy, but then you see like this kind of like almost ghost version of him like reaching out and like caressing his cheek. And it's kind of like I haven't seen that in a movie before. And so I thought that was interesting. And they do it a few times. But yeah, I like that was something that I was like, oh, this is pretty unique and not like, oh, this is like this other movie or anything like that. So I enjoyed that moment. And there's also parts where it's like he'll be going around just kind of like doing stuff, and then there's a scene where he's like walking down the street and starts playing "Come as You Are" by Nirvana, and it was very unexpected, but it was like a pretty cool moment and definitely something that was a more like in like regardless, I think that was something that I'd be like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then especially with this, that everything else is like okay. It definitely was a bit of a highlight of the film, just having a song playing basically. But those moments, they're pretty few and far between. The rest of it is just kind of like not a lot happening. And the movie, the thing is, some people I feel like complain about movies being longer than 90 minutes. I feel like it hurts me as someone that loves movies to feel like every movie has to be confined to 90 minutes. This movie is 2 hours and 15 minutes long, and it doesn't need to be, and it doesn't really feel like it justifies that runtime, to me at least. And so, be aware, it is also a longer movie, and a longer movie that not a lot of stuff happens. And part of it, though, I mean, I'm aware I'm not the target audience. I still wanted to give it a shot, and sometimes movies surprise me. And but this is one that I don't feel like I could see other people really appreciating the like the film style, the themes of it maybe, but I felt like there wasn't a strong lesson or like theme to take away from the movie. I'm sure if I do want to do some research into other people's interpretation of the movie. I don't want to look into that before giving my review because then I'm going to be too biased, and I assume most people seeing the movie, considering if they should see the movie, are not doing the research into the themes and lessons of the film. And so I don't I want to be able to match that experience watching the movie for the first time. But I don't think there's going to be anything that says like, oh, this is a metaphor for this and like this is the meaning behind it. And even if it is something that's like is more interesting, I don't think it's going to make me like go, "Oh, I really enjoy the film overall and it's worth watching now." I think it's going to be something that's like, "Oh, that's interesting," but it doesn't feel like it really justifies the entire movie as a whole, like the dedicating that time to watch it. I would definitely have greater appreciation for it, but I feel like it would still be a movie that I wouldn't necessarily recommend to people unless this is something that outside other reasons they feel excited to see the movie. But for me, I think it's not one that you need to see. And but I don't like there's nothing bad about it. It's not like, oh, this movie was like terribly made, and it's like, how did this get made? It's just something that's like, it's slow, it looks good at times, but there's not a lot happening that the average person, hard to recommend to. Overall, I'm glad I saw it. I don't plan on seeing it again, and I probably won't be thinking about the movie a lot moving forward because it wasn't a movie that had moments that were kind of like making me invested and questioning about. Near the end of the movie, it does get a bit more weird, but it wasn't anything that I felt like I was like enraptured with. It wasn't like, oh, this is weird, but it's really good. It just kind of felt like, okay, this is weird, so it's nice that we get something a little more exciting, but it didn't feel like it kind of felt still like a lateral move. That's like, this is weird, but it's different, but not necessarily great. One thing I will say though, also that was interesting is I was watching, I was like, this kind of, I'm getting like Cronenberg vibes for some reason. And I was like, no, it's not like The Fly or like Scanners, but I was like, it kind of reminds me of Naked Lunch. And just like the directing, I think the setting of it, I found out later that the movie, that book, I knew that the movie was based on a book because it says based on the book of the same name during the opening credits. And the book is by William S. Burroughs, which sounds a little familiar to me, but I didn't make any connection with it. And it turns out William S. Burroughs, he wrote Queer, also wrote Naked Lunch. I was like, oh, I actually was able to recognize this like weird connection that I couldn't quite explain, but then was able to find like actual evidence that there is a connection between the movies. But overall, I think it looks nice at times. There's some interesting directing ideas, but overall, not a lot happening and nothing really worth seeing the movie for. If you are really into it, you really like the book, or you really like the director or something like that, then yeah, I think maybe you'll enjoy it. But if you haven't heard of the movie before and it doesn't sound like something that's up your alley, I don't think it's gonna change your mind on it. So while I was getting ready to upload the video, I decided to look up what else the director had done. I didn't realize it was the same director as Call Me By Your Name and Bones and All. I knew that the person who directed Call Me By Your Name also directed Bones and All, but I didn't know that they also directed Queer. And so I feel like that makes sense, but I feel a little foolish that I literally referenced Calling By Your Name and didn't know that it was the same director. And I really liked Bones and All, but I feel like it's a movie that no one really talked about. Like, I think Calling By Your Name is definitely like a higher level than Bones and All, just like artistically and critically. But I kind of personally liked Bones and All quite a bit, and so it was just kind of a weird realization that I'm like, oh, this is the same director as this movie's. So, I will say I feel a little disappointed as that director because I feel like this is not his like strongest movie. Overall, like it doesn't change my opinion of the movie. It just kind of feels a little disappointing. That's like, oh, this director that I really like and has made really good movies. He made another movie and it wasn't so great. But something that I realized and definitely want to let you guys know before just commenting it and be like, oh, by the way, I had this realization. But anyway, that's it. Maybe next time, don't go into movies completely blind, or at least see the director's other work before talking about the movie so much. By the way, that's it. Now back to the video. But that's going to wrap it up. That's my thoughts on my experience trying to see Kraven the Hunter and my thoughts on the movie Queer, featuring Daniel Craig. And so that's going to wrap it up for this. And now I want to give, since this is the first episode of the series of Real Thoughts, I wanted to give an overview of what the series is, the reason I'm doing it, and what I'm hoping to continue doing with it. And so the whole reason I decided to do this is that I watch a lot of movies. Most weekends I go to the theaters, and sometimes I'll see like 2 or 3 movies back to back to back, just so I can save trips. And so I see a lot of movies, and I like talking about movies. But doing an edited movie video review, like I've done for like the Barbie movie, Y2K, Dune Part 2, stuff like that, I wouldn't be able to do that consistently and in a timely manner just because the editing it takes a while, and then by the time it gets posted, then if it takes me a few days, then it's kind of like it's not relevant anymore. And seeing multiple movies, there's no way I could do that. Multiple movie reviews that are edited and prompt and also work a full-time job in addition to that. So this is a way that I can talk about the movies, give you my thoughts on it, and kind of get that insight that I would offer from a movie review, but it more in like a podcast format that doesn't require editing, something that I can really make like quickly and post and be able to give you my thoughts in a timely manner rather than edited and at the cost of other videos. So hopefully you enjoy this format and want to see more of it. I'll definitely like I feel like I can definitely do this consistently and just talk about the movies that I saw that weekend and my thoughts on it. And I I enjoyed talking about it. Hopefully you enjoyed hearing about it. But yeah, so if you like this, make sure to leave a like. That tells me that you did enjoy it and you want to see more of it. Leaving a comment can also very directly let me know if you enjoyed it or not. But either way, thanks for watching. And before I go, you may have noticed this in the background. This is a Christmas advent calendar that has puzzles in it. So each day there's like a 50-piece puzzle. And so I've just been doing them, lining them up on my desk. So if you noticed it in the background during the video, that's just a quick explanation of what it is. But anyway, thanks for watching. I truly appreciate it. I'll see you guys next time.